But the Donald Trump train continues. I'm still trying to figure this out. You know, I can see multiple arguments. Trump is tweeting now that the election was that he actually not only did he win the electoral vote, but he's asserting that he would have won the popular vote by, you know, so far he's lost it by over 2 million votes and climbing. And he said if it wasn't for the millions of people who voted illegally, in other words, he's claiming voter fraud. And I don't know if what he's trying to do is make it safer for the Chris Kobach types, you know, for the voter suppression, for Alec, for the Republican governors and whatnot. If he's trying to make it safer and easier for them to do even more voter suppression in the future, because the Republican Party realizes that, you know, the level of voter suppression they had this time around, you know, knocking a couple 100,000 people off the voting rolls in Wisconsin and then having Trump win by just, you know, a couple tens of thousands. That's pretty tight, right? So they really need to double down on this. Is he doing that? Or is it just that the guy is such a weak-minded narcissist? Weak-minded isn't quite the, you know, incapable of self-control. Narcissist, that the idea that he lost even part of it, even the irrelevant popular vote, is making him crazy. And so he's trying to say, no, I didn't lose that. I mean, he's done this over and over again where he says, you know, A, and then he says, oh, I never said A. You know, when A has been proved wrong. No, I said B. Right. So what's the long game here? And how's this going to, you know, how's this going to play out? Number one. And number two, the thing that I'm concerned about with this voter recount that has been promoted by Jill Stein and the Green Party and now joined by the Clinton campaign, at least in Wisconsin. And I had a brief conversation with Greg Palast over the weekend on this, and I'm still waiting to hear back from him because he's still digging into it, as far as I know, is whether it will even be able to or bother to look at the people whose voters were suppressed because of Chris Kobach's interstate crosscheck. See, I am of the opinion, and I know that Greg Palast is of the opinion, and he's the investigative reporter who did this for BBC and Rolling Stone and whatnot, that millions of people in the United States were inappropriately and arguably illegally removed from the voter rolls by Chris Kobach, who is now being considered by Donald Trump. He put together this list, interstate crosscheck they call it, of people who have the same name but live in different states. And by the same name, we don't mean middle name, we don't need date of birth, we don't mean Social Security, we just mean first and last name. So Walter Fred Johnson in St. Louis and Walter John Johnson in Washington, D.C. According to Chris Kobach, they're the same person. They're both trying. It's the same person trying to vote twice. He's going to hop on a plane between the two of them or mail in an absentee ballot from one of those two places, and therefore they should both be taken off the rolls. And we find this most common first and last names among ethnic groups, among people who are Black, Hispanic, or Asian. And so they are disproportionately thrown off the list. Will this recount find that? If not, my fear is that if it doesn't find that, it probably will not find that Donald Trump would have won anyway. It'll probably find that, yeah, you know, they were 600 votes off or something, but the results are the same. But if they can find the evidence of voter suppression, if they can find the fingerprints of voter suppression, that could be a big deal. Now, that might be why Trump is tweeting about it. The other reason, though, that's a whole completely separate possibility is that Donald Trump is literally the master of manipulating the media. It's how he got president. It's how he got the Republican nomination. He knows how to, because he knows that the media, they're all about making money. And to make money, you got to have good programming. And to have good programming, the cheapest programming available is reality TV. It came out of the writer's strike back in the late 80s, and they discovered, hey, people actually watch this stuff, and we don't even have to pay union writers for it. Well, Donald Trump is a reality TV star. And so, you know, the network's just signed up for a 4-year reality TV show. So is the reason why he's tweeting this stuff right now not because he's afraid of the recount, but because he wants to change the subject? The New York Times just published, and for some reason, Donald Trump's most influential, and see, this is where I don't think it's just some reason. I think we've been watching this for the last year and a half. Whenever Donald Trump is in a hole, whenever the news cycle is going against him, he tweets out something so outrageous that the entire news machine stops in the tracks and says, whoa, giant shiny object. We've got to pay attention to this. This is the important stuff. Donald Trump is saying that millions of people voted illegally. So let's stop talking about his conflicts of interest. Let's stop talking about Betsy DeVos being his Secretary of Education, who is like, you know, the chief school privatizer of the state of Michigan, a billionaire, right-wing billionaire, basically owns Michigan politics, or to a large extent. Let's stop talking about the research about the cognitive benefits for Social Security. I'll get to that later on in the program. Let's stop talking about, you know, carrier and outsourcing jobs and all that, where Bernie's actually calling out Donald Trump. Let's stop talking about all of that. Let's talk about, you know, Donald Trump. Is it true that millions of people illegally vote? No, it's not true. We've always known it's not true. It's not possible. But Donald Trump said it's true. We've got to talk about it. He's playing you. He's playing you like a fish on a line. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NPR. What am I missing? NBC. Yeah, I think I got them all. Fox News, he doesn't have to play them. They play him. That's the other thing I thought about over the weekend. I was thinking about writing an op-ed. Dear Fox News, you've got to start being responsible with your programming, because our new president-elect watches Fox News and believes what he sees. And Fox News has been programming over the last month or so, strongly suggesting, and in many cases their guests coming right out and saying, there's a whole bunch of illegal voters, right? And you got this pathetic attempt being done by Dip Crap. What's his name? Actually, I don't want to mention his name. The young guy who has been busted a couple of times, who basically took down Acorn. And you've got, and he says, oh, I've got proof of vote. You know, he's got no proof of voter fraud. What he's got proof of is that he can commit a crime of putting somebody who's not really a voter on a voting roll. But that doesn't mean that you can show up and vote under that person's name. There is no voter fraud in this country, yet Donald Trump is promoting it. Why? Is it to avoid the bad news? The New York Times doing this deep dive in all his conflicts of interest, all the stories about his corruption, all the stories coming out about how his cabinet is his cabinet and his advisors right now represent the exact opposite of what he campaigned on in many cases.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Or is it a twofer? Is it that he gets the benefits of both? That's very likely, but whatever it is, the media in this country is just perfectly happy to be played as long as it's profitable.